Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at a Wednesday night slate here with 13 games to choose from, Nate, after just 3 games on Tuesday night. Definitely make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We're bringing you these videos each and every weekday of this regular season. Have game videos and our player props up for you, so make sure you are following along with us. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where we have our great written content up for you guys all season long, and our odds finder tool that you can use to make sure you're getting the best juice back on all those NBA bets. In this one, we're taking a look at Memphis at Mini against the Timberwolves there. Also, like I said, have those other couple videos up. But Nate, let's get into that big slate and then talk T-Wolves and Grizz.
Yeah, I mean, big slate indeed. We got Hawks -6 at the Magic with Paolo back in the lineup there. The Sixers are +4 at Cleveland despite having Embiid back, so kind of like their chances there. The Wizards +5 at the Nets. Ben Simmons is out for a while, but KD is carrying the squad. The other game we break down, Miami's +9.5 at Boston, total at 224 there. The Bucks -6 at the Knicks, who are on a back-to-back there. Raptors with Siakam back -1 at Pelicans. Spurs +5 at Thunder. Rockets +11 at Denver. Bulls +6 at the Suns. The Clippers +7 at the Jazz. The Pacers +4.5 at Kings. That's a intriguing game to talk about for sure after their trade. Totals crept all the way up to 242. The Blazers +5.5 at the Lakers, who just blew a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. And then we have Memphis right now, -2.5 at Minnesota. I believe it opened -4.5, and the total down from 233 to 231. I don't understand how there's any real steam behind Minnesota, who I tried to get ahead of calling a win over the Wizards. Turned out they lost a 6th straight to the Wizards. Turns out they also lost Karl Anthony Towns for over a month with a calf injury. And I mean, say what you will about the fit, that's not really going to help in general because Anthony Edwards has not been that dude. D'Angelo Russell is still on the decline of his career. And I mean, where else is the offense supposed to come from? It's just really a stunning turnaround in terms of the number one 3-point shooting team last year is 27th in 3-point percentage on the year, 29th in their last 3 games. They're scoring the 9th highest percentage of their points off twos and 7th in paint points. But that's a problem against Memphis, especially with Triple J back. They shut down the paint. I mean, they have both Triple J and Steven Adams, 2 brick walls that you can run into down low if you are trying to attack the paint relentlessly here. Memphis is back on the winning track, although they haven't necessarily been the most reliable team on the road. I do think that they're up for this one. Of course, this is a brand new rivalry after that playoff series. Lots of heated exchanges between Anthony Edwards and Ja Morant and company. And Memphis has certainly had the better of it. They've not been scared by playing on the road either. They won 2 of the last 3 in the playoffs in Mini. They've won 9 of their last 11 regular season against Minnesota and covered in all 9 of those. But for me, I mean, this is more about being worried that the Wolves can do anything well. I mean, they haven't really been injected by life at home either. They've 2-4 straight up, only covered once in their last 6 home games. That's against Houston. They have the 3rd worst offensive rating in those games. They have the 3rd worst total rebounding rate in those games. Again, it's just stunning that you have Rudy Gobert. He's grabbing like 15 boards a game, and nobody else is helping him out on the glass. They're doing nothing to crash offensively either. Still very high pace, but that's led to them giving up the 10th most fast break points and the most 3-pointers per game. And Memphis, even without Bane the last couple of weeks, they're 9th in 3-pointers made. They're 3rd in fast break points, of course. And they're getting 61 paint points in their last 3. Minnesota's interior defense also deteriorated during that little road trip they had. They gave up 60 paint points to Charlotte, 62 to Washington. You gave up 142 points to Washington. I mean, that is just absurdly poor defense. I don't necessarily see that changing around just because, of course, they want to beat Memphis. they're not going to be able to stop Ja down low. They're not going to be able to score consistently down low and keep the Grizz off the free throw line is the last thing I'll talk about here. I mean, the Grizz right now up to second in free throw attempts the last three. And Minnesota, after allowing the most free throw attempts last year, still eighth most with Rudy Gobert back to protect the rim. So I definitely like Memphis. I don't understand why the spread has shrunken a little bit.
Probably because they're poor numbers on the road. I mean, poor for them, right? Comparatively in terms of the Grizz. But yeah, I don't know. I have no faith in this Minnesota team. I think there's been like maybe one or two games this season that they've kind of surprised me, like somewhat pleasantly. Like they played the way they were supposed to play. They won a game they were supposed to win. But for the most part, this team is bad against the spread, especially this season. Like they're not covering, right? They're in the bottom five in terms of covering all of their games right now. Wherever they play, they're just bad against the spread. 10 games under 500 overall. So they're not covering. They're not playing up to scratch in any way, shape, or form. The only thing that they have going for them is Rudy Gobert getting rebounds. But that doesn't mean their team's getting rebounds. It's wild to me to watch them just kind of be what they are. The key stats that you want when you're playing against Memphis, as we've talked about for seasons now, is are you giving up fast break points? Are you giving up second chance points? Are you giving up points in the paint and off turnovers and the like? And they're not getting as many turnovers or points off turnovers this year, Memphis. Their defense has been a bit worse, and that hasn't led to as many. But they're getting the second chance points. They're getting fast break points. They're getting points in the paint. All of that to the tune of the top 5 in the NBA. It's incredible to me that Minnesota is giving up the third most second chance points, the fifth most offense. Like they have the fifth fewest defensive rebounds. They're giving up the fifth most offensive. It's just crazy that the amount of offensive rebounds. It's like, are Rudy Gobert's rebounds even ever important in any way, shape, or form? And it just doesn't feel like it. The way that Memphis beat them last time is how I think we both think they're going to beat them this time, out rebounding them by 13, getting 16 more points in the paint than Minnesota. Bane was in that game, but I will say Dylan Brooks, who has not been a friend of the show necessarily, as I haven't loved the way that he turns the ball over and takes bad shots within a good offense, has been efficient. He's been shooting 52% from the field since Bane went down. Actually, Bane went down after that game against Minnesota. He stopped playing for the last 7. And Brooks has been really good then. He's had a really, really good defensive rating. And he's like I said, he shot 52% from the field. He's only got 2.4 turnovers a game, which is huge for him because sometimes that number is close to 5 or 4. He's not fouling out quite at the same rate. That's a huge part of it for them because they didn't have another guard without Desmond Bane this season after Melton was gone. Tyus Jones is the point guard, but they just didn't have another off-ball guard to play when Ja wasn't in there or Bane wasn't in there. And Brooks has been a lot better in that sense. The Grizzlies getting to the free throw line at the rate of the third best, and Minnesota giving up all those free throws as well. So the rebounding, the free throws, the paint, like. The only thing that doesn't work here for me is the correlation of what happened in Washington when they got pounced by the Wizards because KP, Bradley Beal, Kyle Kuzma just went unconscious from 3, and the 3-point shooting isn't the way that Memphis is going to beat you. But it doesn't matter. Minnesota's letting you do whatever you want, whether you're outside the 3-point line or inside the paint. And so, yeah, without Cat, especially at this point, I don't see it helping them because I haven't seen anything from Edwards or D'Lo with Rudy Gobert. When that 3-man lineup is on the court, their net rating is minus 2.2. So it's not like there's much to expect from those 3 guys at the same time, which is going to be their 3 most, the 3 focal points on offense for them. Not anything that scares me against Memphis right now, especially as you mentioned with Jaren Jackson Jr. back, averaging 4 blocks a game since he's come back as well with a super nice defensive rating. Obviously helps their defense tremendously. So just a lot to like with Memphis still. They've had a few hiccups without Bane here and there, but I think they're figuring some stuff out, and with everybody getting back into the groove, including Triple J. 3.5 isn't enough. So yeah, the only thing that I could see why bookmakers might be, and people might be betting on Minnesota is maybe they think without Cat they'll be better, and maybe they think that this Memphis defensive, sort of regression on the road for Memphis might be legitimate, but I'm not buying any of that. I'm going Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, Memphis playing poorly on the road when they're underdogs. They're 0-4 straight up this year as road dogs. They're 5-2 straight up when they're road favorites. I mean, they since last year they've been extremely reliable, maybe the most reliable in the league when they're favorites to win, and great against the spread as well with a 9.5 margin of victory. Yeah. But they won 74% of games as favorites, and on the road, that's still 72%. And then you look at when they're road dogs, 37% is their worst cover or worst win percentage in that situation. And a lot of that has to do with, who's out. Ja has missed 2 of their 6 road games in November. And of course, they weren't that great in those games. Ja will not only be playing, though, he will be extremely motivated to shove it down the Wolves' throat tonight, as he was throughout the playoffs last year. And I'm very confident in that. I mean, they blew us away in terms of our expectations against the Pelicans in our last game, clearly figuring out how to get that offense going without Desmond Bane. And right now, I think this is a much better situation for them to get on track on the road. And because what we've seen from them in past seasons, I definitely trust them to win this game. And a small spread is a great opportunity, I think, to bet on Memphis.
Yeah, you're right. And I really need to consider Ja missing 2 of those last 6 roadies as well. They got beat by the Wizards because he wasn't playing, and there was one more game in there that he did not play that they lost as well. I feel a lot better about that. It's if you look at the stats with and without Ja this season, it's a lot different than last season. They're not winning without Ja; they are winning with him. His on-off court numbers are also pretty stark right now because there's a little bit less depth on this team, meaning their bench isn't quite as dominant with Slow-Mo and Melton coming out and Tyus Jones together. So I think there's a little bit of a tide that's turned for Memphis in terms of the inconsistencies, and I think we're about to see them continue to go on a little bit more of a tear. So
this Celtics game, right? Yeah, they're -9, 9.5. It's kind of hovered around there right now. It is a home and home against the Miami Heat. And obviously some key things to watch is I don't know if I really trust that as gospel. I think he could definitely play tonight. Tyler Hero also could definitely play after missing 8 straight for Miami, and their offense has just been putrid without him. But in their last 3, they've at least improved to 11th in defensive rating. They've won 3 in a row because they're number 1 in defense in those wins against Washington twice and Atlanta. Number 1 in 3-point defense, which is, again, something you're going to circle around when you're talking about playing the Celtics, who are attempting threes at a record rate, hitting them at a record rate, scoring a record percentage of points off threes, and that's led to a ridiculous 125 offensive rating while winning 13 of their last 14 here. But the key thing to watch on the other side is Jaylen Brown missed Monday with a neck issue. He's a game time decision as well, and I don't think he's quite understood how important he is to this Celtics team because Tatum is a top 3 MVP candidate. I mean, if Jalen's out against the Heat in particular, that's a problem. I mean, he's been their spark plug both in the playoffs against the Heat last year and then in his last 3 regular season games against the Heat. He's getting 28 points on 54, 48, 91 splits. The Celtics last year lost 4 of their last 5 games when Jalen was out and those were mostly against good teams. Yes, they beat Charlotte handily, and yes, they beat Detroit handily without him this year, but those are not legitimate opponents, especially Charlotte sat LaMelo, Terry Rozier, and I think at least another wing. I mean, Gordon Hayward's never playing, but they had nobody on Monday, and people, applauding the Celtics for handling their business against both the Wizards and the Hornets with one of their 2 guys out, not taking any nights off. That's great, but I mean, you're facing like cannon fodder on defense, basically. And Miami, like I just said, capable of playing the best defense in the league. I mean, on the road this year, they are number 2 in defense. They are number 3 in 3-pointers allowed and 5th in assist-to-turnover ratio, which, is what you got to do with the Celtics is limit that ball movement, limit their good looks from 3. And I trust Eric Spoelstra to be able to implement a scheme that's going to do that. And the Celtics are not going to beat you down low right now. I mean, they're 26th in paint points. Miami gives you nothing in the paint. They're number 1 in free throw attempts allowed and number 2 in paint points allowed. Bam, his last trip to Boston, 93 individual defensive rating. PJ Tucker had a lot to do with this, but they held Tatum to 6 assists, 4 turnovers, 0 for 5 from 3, -12. And, Jalen picked up that slack, but the Celtics lost. And this was in March, again, during their incredible heater last year. So it's not like we're saying jump on them early before they got hot. This was when the Celtics were firing on all cylinders. And I just expect the Heat to come into Boston tonight with something to prove, as they always do. If Jimmy plays, you got to love it. You got to love them covering 9. Like, that's almost a freaking lock. There's no way Jimmy and the boys are just going to lay down and fail to cover 9. Miami is a team to bank on. I mean, this year they haven't had their squad to cover as underdogs. But since last year, 19-11 against the spread as road dogs. And they got a little rest advantage here as well as 19-11 in the same span there with a rest advantage since they've been off since Sunday. I just think they come out to play here, which they typically do in Boston. I know a couple blowout losses early last season, but usually when these teams meet, it's a slugfest. It's like an AFC North black and blue game. That's why you see the total at 224, despite the Celtics' ridiculous offensive numbers. I'm not touching the total, but I think if we're expecting it to be low scoring enough, then the Heat are going to stay within single digits.
Yeah, that's my strongest take as well. Side note, Jimmy and the Boys is a great nickname for the Miami Heat, as you said, because they bring it. They're just a bunch of blue collar dudes. I don't want to touch the total. I want to take an under because of the history between these two teams, because they both do well. But they can guard the 3, right? And that's really what it comes down to against both of these teams is like, can you guard the 3? And they both can. I mean, Miami, we know 10th best opponent 3-point percentage. Boston, 12th best opponent 3-point percentage. They're both guarding the 3 well. But this isn't the same Boston team that even, I'm looking at like the last 3 games these teams played, because that's when Boston started to be the Boston that went to the finals, right? Was in like January, and they played in November last year, early this season, they played to a 95-78 game there in Boston that the Heat lost there, only scoring 78 points. I don't think anybody played. That was like a COVID game or something like that for them. So I'm not taking any stock in that. But on January 31st and later last season, including the one in October earlier this season that the Celtics won 111-104, it was 111-104. The game before that last season, 106-98. You had that 122-92 blowout that the Celtics delivered last January. So that's the summation of the last 3 games, and but I just don't think that those totals are in any way representative of what this Boston team is right now, and that's what I haven't seen as much of. Is them stopping this Boston team right now. Now, I mean, a 111-104 loss earlier this season is fine, but it was like the 3rd game of the season, and I don't know how much stock we put in that either. As guys, look, this Miami injury report all season long has been a full NBA roster. Like, there's like 11 dudes on their injury report, like Duncan Robinson, the rookie Jovic, Haywood Highsmith, been actually a really good backup forward for them, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Dwayne Dedmon backup center, Tyler Hero, Max Strus, Jimmy, Omer Yurtseven, and Victor Oladipo are all on the injury report right now. Jimmy probably out, as we said again. Max Strus is still probably going to play, but the point is he and Hero, once Hero goes out, now Max Strus goes out. Like, it's not fair. It's not as easy to figure out what's the sort of like commonalities here and what would be the trends from earlier this season. To your point, Miami's not covering quite as well on the road because they haven't had anybody playing for them on the road. I don't know that Jimmy's going to play tonight. If he does, yes, this 9.5 feels like a complete lock. But even without him, the way that they've been playing defense over the course of their last bunch of games anyway still makes you realize, like, Jimmy Butler isn't the only reason that they're able to play really well on defense. I mean, over the course of their last 3 games in this little win streak, I know they played Washington twice in a row, but the fact that they handled Atlanta as well in Atlanta and held them to 98 points. They held the Wizards, who apparently, we just saw them go off for 142. They held them to 107 and 105 points in back-to-back games, both at home for Miami in those, but their defense is just as good on the road this season. So there's nothing really that tells me that Miami can't cover this. 10 points feels too much. I was very happy to go ahead and lay 10.5 and pick the Celtics when they beat the snot out of the Hornets the other night, who did not have Gordon Hayward, who did not have LaMelo Ball, right, who did not have anybody playing that night. This is not the same situation. This is a situation where this is a team that can guard the 3, like we say with Miami, and I think that they're going to completely sell out and let let Boston, not let them, but really just run them off of that line, as you said, in the top 5 in terms of limiting 3-point 3-point attempts, which is huge, right? That's something that doesn't get talked about enough. The opponent 3-point percentage is a big deal, but are you also running guys off the line? Because in today's NBA, if you're not shooting that many threes, you're limiting your opportunities to score as many points as the other team if you're giving up threes. So that's the key here for Miami. I think they'll continue to run them off the line, and then look with Bam back there. Obviously, they're still a little bit light down low in the paint, but they're still Miami, and they're still limiting points in the paint to a good enough degree that I think if they do run these guys off the line, they'll have enough success to keep this game within 10 points.
Yeah, you can run guys off the line when you have Bam back there. I mean, he's the biggest problem, I think, for Jason Tatum in terms of finishing around the rim that there is in the NBA. Still kind of shook from getting his dunk taken out of the rim, basically, in that playoff series 3 years ago. But in general, yeah, when you see him on the fast break against Bam, he doesn't know what to do. He just gets called for like a push-off foul half the time because he's trying to separate from Bam. But, yeah, I mean, Miami's defense against Boston has been great in these last 4 regular season games, allowing 106 points per game. Still 37% from three, but limiting those attempts, like you're saying. Limiting the free throw attempts, which is actually where Boston gets a much higher percentage of their points at home right now. They're hitting 3 fewer threes at home because they're getting more down low. But how much of that has to do with the matchups here in a smaller sample size versus Miami, which has given up like nothing in the paint. And then, I mean, maybe this is like a little bit of a scarred Celtics fan take that you got Kyle Lowry in the Garden, and for whatever reason, he just loves to play the heel at this place. 24 points per game, 9.5 assists per game, 45% from three, with a 124 offensive rating his last 5 trips there. And this is a guy who's very much on the back nine of his career, but he's still out there for sure, ready to keep them in the games somehow. Miami also gets to the free throw line very consistently on the road, scores the highest percentage of points in that way. So that will keep you close in this game. Will keep the crowd down a little bit. I mean, you're going to get unlucky here if both Jimmy and Hero are ruled out. I feel like you'll get at least one of those guys back for this game, because it's like, what have you been resting everybody for, Miami? Like, why have you been playing it safe, if not to step up against the number 1 team in the East and right now the number 1 team in the league? You're gonna have your guys back for this, whether it's Wednesday or Friday, and maybe they stagger them. But if you get at least one of those guys back, I think they can hang.
Yeah, man, this is what we play for. What are we talking about here? if you're not going to play guys during this point, yeah, I think Hero plays tonight for sure, which will be big for their offense, because you're completely right that I could also see this if Hero doesn't play, it would be a pretty big problem for Miami's offense, as we've seen that be pretty stagnant as well, without somebody who can at least initiate, right, which is what you need from Tyler Hero. Nobody can kill your bets like Kyle Lowry. Nobody, the games where you bet against his team and he just comes in and starts throwing up threes as he's falling sideways out of bounds and they go in. And it's just nobody can kill your bets like Kyle Lowry in situations you should win. At any rate, yeah, I would agree. I mean, Boston's winning at an insane rate at home right now, 12.5 margin of victory when they're the home favorites, which has happened 11 times this season. But they're covering, as you said earlier, 72.5% of the games that they're home favorites right now. It's some of those games, they haven't been blowing out Milwaukee or Miami or those teams at home. They've been blowing out, some teams that they should blow out, and even maybe Atlanta. You consider a team that shouldn't get blown out. They ran away on that one as well. But either way, this is not the same situation. Spo's going to have his boys ready, Jimmy and the boys. So I feel pretty good about that one tonight. Nate, let's go ahead and get into your first NBA play-up prop for tonight.
Yeah, Kevin Durant has been a monster lately. Of course, his last 37 points per game on a 38% usage rate. The prop is 29.5 points tonight. It's high, but that's exactly what he's averaged against these Wizards in 4 games with the Nets, 29.5 points, along with 9 rebounds and 7 assists. So I actually like the points and rebounds at 36.5, tacking on 7 here, because Ben Simmons is out. So pretty much guaranteeing more minutes for KD, but and he does average more rebounds, a lot more rebounds without Simmons in the lineup this year. I'll just read his line here: 31 points, 9 rebounds, 6.5 assists without Simmons, shooting 41% from 3. In 17 with Simmons, 30 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. So the peripheral stats go up. His 3-point percentage goes up 8 points. in 5 games without Ben Simmons because the spacing is better. I think it's pretty clear to say there. I mean, even when Simmons is just off the floor during games, KD is scoring at a higher rate. The Nets aren't catering to him as much in terms of like, let's push the pace and get other guys easy buckets. They can slow it down and just feed Durant in the half court, and he's just on an unstoppable roll right now. The Wizards are also terrible on defense right now, 125 defensive rating their last 3. Kyle Kuzma playing through some back issues, 119 individual defensive rating his last 3. So I don't think he'll have any chance of stopping Durant. And I don't think the Nets are good enough to pull away from anybody right now. They're 5-point favorites. So hopefully we get a close game down the stretch again. I mean, just like KD had to put up, 39 to beat the Magic at home. So I think you can trust that he'll get his workload and get you 30 points.
Yeah, 30 points. It seems a little bit low for him, for sure, in a game where there's no other scoring. I mean, Seth Curry and Joe Harris will be out there, but still kind of waiting for them to pop off for more than, say, like 14 points in a game, which seems to be their ceiling as well. So plenty of shots coming up, plenty of points coming up for KD against a Washington defense that's been a little bit worse on defense as of late as well. So I'm going to move on to JoJo Embiid as the Sixers are taking on the Cavs. I was very happy to take this one. 40.5 points, rebounds is -110. The points is 30.5. I don't hate that either, to be honest, but it's a little bit worse odds there, and the juice you're getting back. But Mr. Embiid, my preseason pick for MVP, he's keeping himself in the running to be sure, especially with this month of November. In his last 7, James Harden has not been playing in any of those games. 37 points, 10 boards, 6 assists in 36 minutes a game, shooting 51% from the field, shooting 15 free throws a game, making 13 of them. So he's getting 13 points at the line a game right now this month. That's what you love to see from him, is his ability to just get those easy buckets, as there's literally nobody who's as big as he is and as skilled. So his last 2 at Cleveland, neither of which had Jarrett Allen, both which is going to be the case tonight as well. No Jarrett Allen going for the Cavs to stop JoJo. So in his last 2 against them in Cleveland, this exact same scenario tonight in Cleveland, no Jay Allen, 80 points, 34 rebounds in 72 minutes over the course of 2 games. I would say that 1.1 points a minute is very, very good for an individual player. He went 25 for 30 from the free throw line in both those games, right on par with what he's been doing this month, about 13 for 15 from the line. An individual rating of offensive rating 120, 34.5% usage rate. And yeah, the Cavs without Allen in the last 2 seasons since he came over, they have 108 defensive rating with him, very, very good, 116 defensive rating without him. And we've seen them regress a little bit, although they've come back to life. They're definitely limiting rebounds and points in the paint and things of that nature better than they were earlier in the season, and they're back atop the league, but they don't have their stopper, and JoJo Embiid is not anybody there's nobody to stop him. Even if Jarrett Allen was in there, his props might be a little bit lower, but I'm fine with them this high with no Jarrett Allen for the Cavs.
Yeah, Jarrett Allen is maybe the guy I would most like to have guarding Joel Embiid. But yeah, if he's not out there, he should have his way. I mean, can we tack on the assists here too, though, Josh? I mean, he's got at least 6 dimes now in 5 straight with the Sixers having nobody out there. So maybe you want to go full PRA. It doesn't boost you that much on the number there for his points and rebounds. Look, 13 games on the slate. We're going all over. We're going all stars here because why not? You can have your pick of the litter. Anthony Davis facing a Blazers team that is on a back-to-back that has regressed to a 125 defensive rating in their last 5 roadie games here. So, and in 7 games matching up with Jeremy Grant since he joined the Lakers, AD averaging nearly 28 points per game on just 25% usage. And that was kind of the thing. LeBron back in the lineup, his last 2 games, AD dropped to a 23% usage rate. And they nearly lost to the Spurs, the Lakers, and then they did blow a lead against the Pacers with AD not getting enough work down the stretch. Still got 25 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, which gets you comfortably over his props here, 24.5 points, 39.5 PRA. That's what I'm looking at. But, you looked at what he was doing before LeBron was in the lineup in 6 games, 2 with LeBron, 32 points per game, 17 rebounds, 4.5 stocks, steal/blocks there. So you can get plus odds on him to get 4 of those. And I kind of like tacking in the assists, though, the way he's been facilitating. And Portland gives up the second most dimes to power forwards. But I think the points is just an obvious one here. his usage has got to go back up. The Lakers have to understand they played through this guy, and he was leading them to some success, and now they've looked a bit shaky in their last few with trying to reintegrate, making LeBron's team again. It's Anthony Davis's team right now. If he's healthy, just feed the man the ball.
100%. I mean, if Russell Westbrook's on a team, it's kind of always Russell Westbrook's team, according to him. But yeah, I think anybody who is rooting for Lakers success would love to see Anthony Davis touch the ball on every single possession. It's not the same give it to him, have him back people down. It's move the ball to the corner, move the ball to the wing, and then have him cutting through the middle, because once he gets the ball within 6 feet, he's so skilled and strong and tall. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. He's not shooting the threes anymore, which is what you love to see if you're a Lakers fan as well, because you do really want him to sort of establish that down low presence, not be worried about flying all over the court either. A little bit less opportunity to get hurt if he's playing closer to the basket than if he's running around all over the 3-point line. So a lot of good for AD right now. 24.5 points is still a bit low against a Portland team that is coming off that bad loss to the Clips last night. So finishing things off with Halababy, with Tyrese Haliburton. Haven't talked about him that much this season, but I mean, it's that Kang's Pacers game, man. 242-point total. We can't go through these player props without at least having one over in here from that game. I'm going to take Haliburton. The assists, not as much juice there. It's 11.5, which, I mean, he's averaging 13 over his last 10 anyway. So, I'd be pretty happy to take those, but it's not quite as much juice. 16.5 rebounds and assists gets you all the way up to plus 105. And I like that because there's going to be a ton of shots in this game. There's going to be a ton of opportunities for rebounds in this game. So I think that can give him a little bit more juice there for the boards. 13 assists and 4 rebounds per game over his last 10. He's hit this total of 17 rebounds and assists in 8 of those 10 games. So like I said, ton of possessions with the 5th and 6th fastest paced teams in the league tonight. 13-5. So he had in the first matchup and only matchup with Sacramento, he had 15 assists in that game, and then 5 boards as well. So got clear over that total. Sacramento's allowing the 4th most points in the paint, which is very good for Haliburton, who loves to get into that paint slash and then also dish for layups and dunks over there. And then, Sac's not very good against opposing point guards, allowing their bottom 10 in terms of allowing the most points, assists, and rebounds to opposing point guards. There's just not much, quite as much wing defense, and D Fox, for as long and rangy and fast as he is, doesn't really, maybe he's not guarding the opposing point guards. I'm not really sure. I think he's better at defense than allowing that many, but it seems like that's been a pretty big weakness for them this season for the Kang. So pretty happy to have Haliburton take advantage of that.
I definitely like the rebounds, assists more than the points here. His points have fluctuated pretty wildly based on his shooting. Yeah. The Kings, like you said, maybe they have Fox guard take the off guard here and put off night Davion Mitchell on Tyrese Haliburton, try to force him to give up the ball early. But I mean, he's just diming at an incredible rate. It's 14 dimes in 5 of his last 6 games. And if you're talking about 3 more rebounds on top of that in a game with a ridiculous total that's expected to be played with pace, I think that's great. And the fact that you're getting plus 105 makes that a fantastic bet.
Yeah, I think we found the value there because the rebounds I seem to be getting shorted a little bit by the odds makers for this one. So feel good about that. And that is all the time that we have for you in this one. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along as we stay wicked hot on these player props this season. And until we see you next, happy betting.